Okay, we are about to have the second workshop lecture in private international law, and today I hope to guide you through, let's say, the transition of the introductory 2 weeks to the European Union law weeks that will follow. And for that purpose today I will spend more time than in the lecture on this question on international law, on public international law. And I suggest I present it to you and then we do a few exercises to get an idea on that topic. So I selected 4 key issues, and this public international law issue is one of them. And the first highlight of last lecture is the questions how can rules of law conflict with each other? And we identify 4 main flavors, 4 main types of conflict. And I basically copy-pasted this from an earlier slide to put it a little bit more predominant, more precisely on your radar, so that you are aware of the importance of those 4 types. And it's the conflict between geographical territories, between temporal, so time aspects, between hierarchy aspects, and then we talk about rules about the same substance. For instance, European Union law on competition law, quarter 7, or European Union law on internal markets, so goods and services, last quarter, where you can have rules of member state level and you can have rules on the same topic of the European Union. And then it is clear what the European Union wants, to harmonize all those rules and to take away obstacles for the free movement of goods and services, capital and workers, persons. But that is a conflict. And then we have a dispute settlement mechanism, the court in Luxembourg, that decides whether the subordinate rules are in conflict with the higher rules or not. And in class on internal market law, you study all those rules that EU law wins, but there are also cases where national legislation on goods and services are okay in the light of European Union legislation. So a vertical clash between rules. And then the last one on the slide is the item of the ratione personae, which is an active concept in territories with many, or countries with many different cultures within the borders, where a decision is made. So the legal system is designed that way, so there's a choice to say, well, people can have their own laws. And I dare to say that it's a sort of the period of enlightenment, sort of the French Revolution type of invention, that everybody should be equal, which is the alternative choice. So either you choose in your legal system, in your state, that everybody should stick to the same rule, or you could say, we allow it to depend on your birth, language, religion, all kinds of things. And then from a sort of perspective, sort of outsider perspective, you could say, well, if that works, and people have their dispute settled through these laws, and the state obligation to honor international human rights is also not infringed on, and everybody is happy. And so it is a possibility, but relatione personae, so the conflict rules on the basis of a person, are not regarded as very modern, because it is quite often an excuse to allow people to stick to their old-fashioned rules that women or children are worthless and so forth. So that is then the danger of accepting the conflict of ratione personae as an option. So this is an important one. And then the private international law zooms in on the ratione loci. And the other conflicts are apparent in other areas of law. And then the message of private international law, and this slide is, please be aware with all the future R's, the legal rules you use, whether they are not in conflict with an alternative rule to solve the same the I of issue, and that you have to choose which one is the best one. The temporis is a call on you to continue permanent education, lifelong learning, to check whether there's not a new rule on your subject matter, overruling the old one, because that is one of the general principles, that new rules overrule the old ones. Otherwise it's messy. If you have two rules that continue to apply and they exclude each other, that is rather inconvenient. Then pertaining to the history and to the key questions that are answered in the law on private international law. And that is the question posed by Mr. Saxoforato, Italy, 13th century, 700 years ago. May state legislation apply to non-state citizens? And if we have citizens that are born in a state and they have to follow the mandatory rules of public law, for instance, and the private law, which is due to the constitutionalization of private law also a public affair ultimately, what happens if that person leaves the country? Is that person capable of carrying those state rules with him or her across the border? So let's collect some insights from your side on the first question. If you do a little role play, what is then the situation of the first main question? Where are you? And could you give a sort of example where the question is sort of relevant? Let's start over here, front row, quasi front row.
Can you repeat the question?
So can you give me an example of this main question?
Guy as a woman took his child, divorced from a guy and took his child to another country maybe.
Yes. And then which legal question would you connect to that?
Made the state's legislation which the mother and the child is living can apply to the foreigner.
Yes. Neighbor, an example where it is not a problem. So let's do the role play that today you're not a Dutch citizen. And
I'm not.
so you're running around in this lovely country, flat and rainy. And which rules do you not mind that are applicable on you? maybe according to Dutch lawyers. So can you give me an example of a Dutch law that is applicable to you and you don't mind? A simple example.
The 20% tax on the product.
Yes, the VAT?
The VAT.
You pay it?
I don't mind it.
You don't mind. And how come that you do not mind? Because it's a peculiar example. Because it costs you money.
Well, I had it in my country as well, and it was 24%. So.
Aha. Okay, so
I'm used to it.
those local laws are beneficial, even. That's a good reason. So why do people not mind if it is beneficial? If it would have been 28% VAT, would you be this happy camper?
Yes, because it's part of the country's legislation.
Okay, and what emotion is that? So previously the emotion was good deal, and this emotion is?
It's still a good deal because I cannot go into a shop and just today I don't feel like paying the VAT. I'll just take the product, pay the normal price, and then leave.
Okay, so ignorance of sort of acceptance. Okay, neighbor, other example of a Dutch rule that for today you're not a Dutch citizen. You sort of no-brainer.
Complying with public rules like not drinking alcohol in public places.
Not drinking alcohol in public places. Like, okay, what the heck, let's do it their way. Okay. And who can think of a rule, Dutch rule, where you feel less comfortable with? That you think and I think that it is applicable on you. Who can think of a rule? Yes.
Foreign students don't get free travel.
Wait a minute. Say the first part again.
Foreign students don't get free travel.
Foreign students get not free travel.
We don't.
And then in a community of legal professionals, there's always immediately debate that the statement might not be correct. Interesting. And that is because, with which emotion?
Dissatisfaction.
Dissatisfaction, sort of discrimination, like they get it and we are not. Are there any?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do foreign students pay taxes?
Do foreign students pay taxes? Well, they pay VAT on a daily basis in shops. And when they work, who's working, is not having a Dutch passport and is working, and got a sort of salary slip?
Yes, we pay taxes.
And what were their taxes on it? Yes.
But
So believe me.
They're workers. When they're paying taxes like that, it's because they have work and they're workers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So as students, whether or not they have a job.
Oh, okay. So to be a student, whether there's a student tax in? No, there's not a student tax.
So they shouldn't expect to travel for free if they pay tax.
That's students are paid.
Okay. Well, let's.
Students are paid.
No, but they're, if they have income like you, they are taxed. They're taxed. So ultimately it's the same treatment.
But you pay tax for garbage. For garbage you pay tax if you live in the Netherlands.
But let's not dive too much in that particular rule. Let's try to detect rules that trigger this question, where you could say, well, I would like to have my own rules, because then I could get free travel or something. Other examples, ladies and gentlemen, of rules that are sort of, you would not mind to have your own rules from back home. So, I did see a finger? Yes, okay. Shh. We move to the next example.
Yeah, fines.
Say it again?
You get a fine or the price is very high.
Okay, the fines are high. So when you break the rules,
Yeah.
then the consequences are more severe than back home. Okay. Other examples? Yes.
Adultery concubinage
Yes.
Oh, a guy can have so many wives and
Yeah? And that feels okay or not okay?